Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on this Med Day Thursday. April happens to be Foot Health Awareness Month, and that's where we're fortunate enough to be joined by one Lindsay Rollins. Lindsay, right now, is a key player at Mercy Joplin and been there about a year. Is that right, Lindsay?
That's right. I came over from primary care about a year ago, and I am so happy to be here. We have a great team here, and I love to heal wounds, which is what we do here at Mercy Wound Care.
Well, Lindsay, with this being the first time that we've had you on Med Day Thursday, I want to thank you for all your time. My first question for you is just for a little background for everybody. How did you get involved in wound care, and where did you see the importance and why you wanted to be a part of it?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. It's never something that I actually sought after. Wound care wasn't. But I'm certainly a believer in the hand of the Lord in the life. And so I was just presented with an opportunity after a couple of years in primary care. I was looking for a place to land after getting some really good baseline experience in that area. And now I will say it's where my heart is. This community is full of wounds that need help, wounds that aren't healing with maybe just antibiotics or putting on a simple bandage. So it's absolutely my pleasure to learn a little bit about all of the different things that go into why a wound isn't healing and how we can address each one of those things.
Lindsay, I'm so happy to hear that you found your calling. That is tremendous. Yeah. Now, when we talk about wound care in particular, April is about foot health awareness. And to some people, they may be like, what's the big deal? So I've got something on my foot that isn't healing correctly. Yeah, just throw some Neosporin on it and call it good. Until we realize this can lead to long-term problems.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you give that example because I probably have that exact example in my office at least a few times a week. It was just something on my foot. What was the big problem? I just put Neosporin on it. I thought that would be fine. Covered it up. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? Our feet, we cover up with socks, we cover up with shoes. We don't really think about it until sometimes it's too late. But my goal is to prevent an issue so that we don't get to that point where it's too late and then we're ending in amputations. But you're right, our feet are huge. I mean, think about what you do every day, and that will differ a little bit for everybody, right? But most people are on their feet. And so we need them to be healthy so that they can allow us to do whatever it is that we do. And a lot of times there is either a callus on our foot or maybe a small wound. But if that's not healing or not showing signs of improvement within 1 to 2 weeks, there's probably an underlying problem. And it really needs to be addressed so that we can prevent things like, I always say, the quality of life goes down with an open wound that requires advanced wound care.
Let's talk about being proactive. Early detection, it's a key factor in healthcare. And when it comes to the diabetic population here in the 4 states, what are some of the things that anybody, but specifically diabetics, need to pay attention to when it comes to their feet and when to seek help and ask about wound care treatment?
And I'm glad you asked because that's so huge. And like you said, specifically in our diabetic patients, we see that these patients, for multiple reasons, tend to be at high risk, 1 for ulcers and 2 from the complications that we see from ulcers. So there's 2 really big things that I really push when we're talking about prevention. The first thing is looking at your feet. It sounds so simple and it sounds silly, but it's kind of like your back. We don't ever see our back, we don't think about it. Think about when the last time is that you looked at the bottom of your feet. Most of the wounds that we see are going to be on the bottom of the feet, where you can't see them. And most of our diabetics can't feel. So somebody might say, well, that's silly. If you have an open wound on the bottom of your feet, it's going to hurt. You're going to know it's there and you're going to look at it. Well, not necessarily the case, especially in our diabetic patients. They can't feel. So they lose their body's ability to identify when something is wrong.
Lindsay, you have a unique treatment system at Mercy Joplin. It's a hyperbaric chamber. Do you have time to stick with us, come back a little later in the show and kind of dive into that?
I would absolutely love to.
Lindsay Rollins from Mercy Joplin, and we're going to check back in with her great knowledge that she's going to provide about hyperbaric treatment, and we'll have that coming up in just a little bit. More KOAM Morning News for you when we return.